Uncle Kerry's about to drop some more knowledge on you people, and we're going to be talking fishing lines today. Another argument that people can make, another thing that people, fishermen, fisherwomen, have a lot of opinions on. So let's go to one of the best. Kerry Marcus. Keep calling. You can call him Uncle Kerry, but it's Kerry Marcus. All right. So I don't necessarily want to get into like all the minutia of this line does this and this line does that, but let's talk about. Well, the three big ones, mono, fluorocarbon, and braid. When you have fishermen coming in here, I've been under the impression that most everyone bay fishing is throwing braid now.
We're selling more braid than we do monofilament now.
So that is the case.
Yeah.
It's pretty much taken over.
Yeah.
There's been a little bit of an evolution in production in terms of the technology, and that's why it's better now, huh?
There is still some. This is one of this brand Spiderwire is one of the very, very early ones, and it's still around.
Yeah.
That's
pretty big.
Well, that's a 65 pound.
Okay.
I just happened to grab a spool.
Okay.
It's very round, but it's kind of stiff. But if you love it, you love it, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't put this on my reel.
Why is that?
I don't like it.
Yeah. Okay, that's what we want to know. That's what our viewers want to know.
But it's but there are people who just love it.
Yeah.
And there's part of it, just like we were talking about on lure colors. You're used to this.
Yeah.
Therefore, you fish it well.
Right.
Your thumb is educated if you got a bait casting reel.
With that particular.
With this, your thumb is educated to this line.
Yeah.
Why in the world would you change?
Okay, I get it, but okay. So now tell me, why in the world? Who? In what situations? In what environments? What fishermen are using? Let's start with mono. With mono, what are we doing here?
Well, you get way less expensive. If you're loading up stuff for people that are absolute beginners, or you got 5 nephews and 3 kids. I'm putting monofilament on their reels.
Yeah.
I'm not spending the money for braid.
Yeah.
The fish don't really care. Yes, you will cast a lot farther
With that.
with the braid because it is so skinny. That's kind of its main advantage.
Right.
Whether it's spinning reel or casting reel.
What about give and take?
But I mean, monofilament. We've all caught 50 billion fish on 12-pound test monofilament.
That's back in the day. That was the go-to.
Yeah. And 20-pound test bass fishing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, what's interesting is the fluorocarbon, which is tougher than monofilament, it sinks faster than monofilament, is, like I said, more abrasion resistant, and is much clearer than monofilament. Well, that might make a difference in Port Isabel. It doesn't make a difference up here.
Correct.
But you would think that you would sell a lot of reels, fill a lot of reels for saltwater with fluorocarbon, and it does not happen.
And why is that, you think?
The bass guys love it.
Yeah.
Most of the bass guys fish fluorocarbon almost exclusively, except when they use 65-pound braid for fishing frogs.
Right.
And heavy cover.
Yeah.
Right? And why it has never been anything but a leader material down here on the coast, it kind of mystifies me.
So it could be an option that people would want to use.
Yeah, I mean, it works fine. It's stiffer than monofilament. So if you tend to backlash, boy, it'll fluff up pretty quickly on a reel if your thumb isn't very well educated.
Yeah, now
just because it's stiffer.
Exactly.
I say that than most of the monofilaments.
There
are some monofilaments that are very tough, which are good for abrasion resistance.
Yeah.
But they're a little stiffer than the lines that you would use for easy casting monofilament.
Right.
And on a small spinning reel, I sure don't want to put one of these extra tough monofilaments because it's just too light.
Right. But before we get to the braid, one thing that I do with monofilament, and tell me if I'm wrong, is I like to use it as a leader because I think the light lures can sink a little slower because it's a lighter line and maybe stay above the grass.
Yeah. Well, that's probably true.
Yeah.
That's probably true. Now we're getting to the edge of overthinking it.
Yeah, we're dipping our toe. We're dipping our toe in there.
But it's you're allowed. It's not like you're doing something evil. You can think about this as much as you want.
Yeah. So it's really all three. It's just whatever's your favorite flavor.
Far more fluorocarbon in small spools like this for leaders on the coast than we do monofilament for the coast.
Yeah.
For leaders.
Yeah, for leaders.
People use the fluorocarbon because it's tough, because it's it's more invisible.
Yeah.
One thing about fluorocarbon is you need to re-practice your knots if you've never used it before. The reason it sinks so quickly compared to monofilament, and the reason it's tougher than monofilament, is because it's extremely dense. The molecules are extremely dense.
Okay.
That means a knot does not seat as well
Oh, gotcha.
because the softness is not there, or the relative softness.
So you really
is
have
not
to
there.
pull it together.
You have to
Yeah.
sort of re-practice your knots. You don't have to relearn them, but just
Yeah.
make sure that
Yeah.
you're taking the right. If you use a clinch knot, take the right number of turns.
Yeah.
If you're tying a loop knot, make sure you've got it
Yeah.
seated properly and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it is different because it's so dense.
Yeah.
Let me throw in one technical thing
Okay.
that's gotten rather popular, particularly in the tarpon world and offshore, is this pink color. As you go down through the water, the first colors to disappear and not be apparent are the reds.
Oh, really?
So this pink line, once it's, I mean, not for fishing in knee-deep water.
No,
here,
you're talking deep water.
But I'm talking
Yeah.
throwing a lure around the jetties or something.
Yeah.
Around a rig.
Yeah.
This actually works. It becomes even more clear, sort of, than the clear stuff because the color disappears.
Yeah.
And you get almost no reflection off it like you would on a
That's
bright
interesting.
sunny day offshore with the clear line.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a
That's
little,
very nice. That's
little
very important. I know they're going to
ain't
want.
science wonderful.
Science is wonderful. Now, let's
Braid.
get to everybody's favorite, it seems, right now, braid.
Regular braid. I brought out a couple of 30 pounds. You can see how skinny they are. It's going to be hard for the camera
Kind
to
of
pick
see
it up.
it, yeah.
Well, here it is against a finger
Yeah.
or something. But
Yeah.
there are, most of the companies have two types. There's the standard type, which I can't show. It feels rather rough.
Yeah.
You can feel the texture of the weaving of the braid.
Yeah.
And then there's some sort of newer stuff that is sort of flattened and silkier feeling.
Yeah.
And I don't have a scientific place to go.
Well, what is the
either
compare
one.
and contrast here? What,
This is the silkier stuff obviously is softer, and people that just like that feel better, like it better.
Yeah.
I've got it, I like it particularly good on a spinning reel, because the relatively small spools of an inshore size spinning reel,
Yeah.
I want something that'll lay flat and is not apt
Right.
to get springy
Right.
and spring off
And the
spool.
memory will be a little better and all that.
And although I have some spinning reels that have just regular braid on it too.
Yeah.
But I kind of prefer this on a spinning reel. I think it's very sweet for that stuff.
Yeah.
And I've got two bait casting reels loaded with this, the silky stuff. And I'm sure your podcast listeners, there's some people out there that have absolute opinions that I'm not.
You think?
I'm not privy to, and that
Yeah.
they'll be very strongly saying, "Well, he's crazy about that
Yeah.
stuff." Well, okay.
Okay, but that's
I'm
your
crazy
preference,
again.
and that's one. That's one.
It's
Well,
it's out there for a purpose, so that we have choices.
well, there's a reason they made it that way.
It's delicious that we have so many choices.
We do have
these
so
days.
many choices. Now, last question here: 20 pound, 30
We
pound.
sell more 30 than anything.
Is that right?
Yeah. Partly because if you get a backlash in 20,
Got to pick it out.
and even if you don't have bifocals, it's pretty darn skinny.
Yeah.
And 30 is a little bit bigger. It's like 8-pound test monofilament size.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a little bit easier to get the backlash out of 30.
Yeah.
That being said, we don't sell a lot of 40 and 50, even though that stuff is still smaller than the 12-pound test mono that
Yeah,
used to
that
be
we used to.
the standard.
Yeah.
So even on 50-pound, it would be a little harder to get a backlash out of that than it would be out of a.
I remember when,
12
and maybe I'm the dummy here, but I remember when I first started using braid back when it first came out. It seemed like the backlashes were much tougher to get out back then. Now maybe it was just me not being used to it. Maybe it was the technology has just developed a little bit easier, where it's easier to slide off. You know, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that, but I do think they have gotten slicker,
Yeah.
and that may help being able to pick and
Yeah.
pull and pick and
Trust
pull.
me, I have experience.
I've made a few pro errors once or twice.
Yes. User error. All right.
Speaking of braid,
Yeah.
you probably can't see that white scar there and there.
Yeah.
Back when braid was brand new, I was repping all this fancy fly
I can see
fishing
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I went down to Puerto Vallarta and took practice wife down there. And I needed to go catch a yellowfin tuna on a flyer,
Yeah.
which I know now, after having done a few of them, a colossally stupid thing to do with flouro. But I've caught enough big tarpon and some amberjacks and things like that. I know kind of what, at what point I'm quivering. I'm pulling about 14, 15 pounds.
Yeah.
And I hooked this tuna that's about your size, which was stupid in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling about 14, 15 pound while he's trying to take 700 yards of 65-pound braid off of my reel.
So what do you do?
I touched the
Of
line.
course you did.
What a bad idea.
Of course you
Instantly, instant blood all over the teeth.
Of course you
Skipper
did.
was real happy with
I'm
me.
sure he was happy with you on that. Oh, well, there you go. You got a battle wound.
Braid.
That's badass, man. Thanks for all. That's the one and only Uncle Kerry here at Fishing Tackle Unlimited. So don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And as I always say, leave your comments because it's great interaction and we appreciate it. We'll be back with another one soon.